last week we talked about most of the focus was how do we help basically investors find the right realtors, right, to work with. What should be the approach? How can they find them? How should they approach them? How to retain that relationship? So today we want to kind of switch it and go the other way. If you are a realtor, right, which I know many of us on here are as well, we want to like, how do we identify good investors, right? How do we go out there and build that repeatable business, which is something that I've been very grateful for, quite frankly, is I don't really chase business, right? I don't really do too many listing appointments, right? Because once I build a relationship with an investor, quite frankly, I do a listing presentation once and that's it. Every other listing I get from them is just given to me because of my reputation and my trust I built with them. So that's the goal, right? Why is Eric and I excited about working with investors? Like, that's one of the main reasons. It's a repeat business model, right? We don't need to necessarily chase new clients, traditional clients. Now, we won't say no to those clients, right? Because there's opportunities that come from doing business with investors where it leads us to traditional clients, but that's also not our primary focus, where we're doing an open house every single Sunday just so we can meet a new traditional client. We're probably, if we are doing an open house, it's probably because it's for one of our investor clients that just flipped the home. Yeah. Right. It's our listing in my case, with my team. So with that said, so I think it would be great for us to start, Eric, with this question. What are types of investors? Because like when we talk investors, right, that's a very general term. There's several classes, I guess, within that. So maybe touch upon some of those, and I can add if you miss something, I can always add another.
Yeah, so there's just a couple big pools, and then it'll break down a little bit more over time. But so the big one is or not big one, but one of the common ones is wholesalers. So that's a wholesaler is getting a property, and then they're selling it. Sometimes they'll do a double close, and sometimes they'll sell it off, subject to. But that's just going to be, they're finding a property that it's undervalued, and then they're selling it for a little bit more, and then that investor's looking to do something with it, whether it's buy and hold or flip it. Buy and hold investors, those are going to be people that are buying rentals and holding the property for a long term, whether it's just as a retirement plan or if it's for the passive income. Some people do it as a tax savings as well. There's flipping. I know that's the big one you work in, Randy. I definitely am kind of split in between buy and hold and flipping. I help both. Flipping is great because you're helping them you can help them acquire the property, and then you can help them sell it. Buy and hold, you're only typically helping them acquire it. Maybe in the future they'll sell it, so you still want to keep that relationship good during that time. And then there's going to be like subcategories. So those are the three main ones. And then you're going to have land developers. So that's people that are building on land, finding a vacant lot, and then actually getting it permitted to build on. That's great. I actually know a ton of agents who have grown their business tremendously, helping those kind of investors. But those are the main types. It'll always break down a little bit more. There's niches for sure, but that's the big theme.
Yeah.
And it's
go ahead. Sorry,
well, I was gonna say one of the things we always have to think about too as agents is like, which one is our expertise and which one do we want to work with? If you understand the flipping numbers really well, you don't necessarily want to work with buy and hold investors. It's not going to make as much sense, and vice versa. I like to try and be as proficient in all of them as possible, because if a deal comes across my desk, I want to be able to have somebody that I can kick it out to. But at the same time, if somebody sends me, a 700 unit apartment building, I'm probably not going to be the best person for it. So kind of find where you want that to fit.
So what was your first investor, Eric? Like, what was he doing or is still doing?
Yeah, so he flipped. That was the one that I joined on, acquisitions, disposition. So he flipped properties.
Okay.
So he brought me on just as marketing, and then I grew into the acquisition disposition role after the fact. I got into real estate wanting to do buy and hold, so I understood the buy and hold numbers, and that's actually kind of where I was leaning at first.
Got it. And it's because too, your market is also good for buy and hold type properties, unlike California.
Yeah,
you can't really buy a single family home in California in most cases and cash flow, but you can over there, right?
Yeah, so we're a Rust Belt state, so that's Midwest, tons of industrial work. Our prices stay pretty consistent. Like our average sales price in Cincinnati is 250,000. Our rent's actually gone up. Our rent has gone up more than any other city the past 2 years in the United States. So there's still plenty of cash flow. We get out of state investors from everywhere. Just because the numbers do make sense, they're good. You can still buy properties here, like 3-bed, 1-bath ranches on a slab for like 130,000 and rent them out for 1,400 a month.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's the thing. Like, I think it all depends where you are in the country and what is the attractive asset class, right?
Yeah,
Flipping will work in any market, but the buy and hold type investor, that's particular to most markets. Like in case, are there buy and hold investors in San Diego? Of course there are, but it's just I would have to work really, really hard to number one, find the good ones, and then two, find the inventory that would actually numbers wise make sense. And most of those will buy like multi units, like bigger apartment things, which again, that's not my forte. It could be yours, but you have to, like, I think I like what you, Eric, so you got to kind of identify your niche that
Mhm.
you like to kind of focus on, because that's what you're going to lead with when you start meeting investors, is that experience and that language, right? And then once
Yeah,
you know who you think you want to target, I think then it will tell you kind of which rooms to put yourself in,
yeah,
right? So you can be a lot more strategic on which meetups to go to, which we're going to kind of get into next. It's like, how do we find these investors? But before we get to that, maybe I'll tell you a little bit like how I got started. Is I actually started flipping myself, right? So I ran a company in New Jersey with a partner. Then I moved to San Diego and joined another partnership. And so that was kind of like my way of learning the investor world by being an investor myself. But then we opened up a brokerage and I started recognizing the fact that, wow, there's a lot of things I can do with other investors. So instead of just only focusing on our investment company, how about I have my team also start helping other investors in my network that I got to know because we wholesale deals to one another. So it was like, oh, let me help my team get business from something I already know and do, right? So that's kind of like, I kind of came in the back door way to working with investors by being an investor myself, right? So like I speak both languages. So if you guys ever have questions like that, I can speak from both sides. But anyway, so let's think about, so once we identify the niche, right? Where do we go? Where do you go in Cincinnati to find investors, Eric?
yeah. So in-person meetups are my favorite. In-person meetups, and you can find them on Facebook. I found mine actually through another agent who had invited me to it. And then once I went to one, I kind of asked around and found some other really good ones to go to. But that's typically my favorite place because you're kind of meeting somebody face to face. You're getting an idea of what they're wanting to do. You're able to, I always go in those rooms and I've always, I just ask how I can help and grow other people's business. So I'm never going in there saying, hey, I'd love to list some properties. Who's got some properties to list? I go in there and I go, what are you looking for? What can I help you with personally? Okay, you're looking for deals. What kind of deals are you looking for? Every investor has a buy box. So they have something that they're looking for. So I have investors, I try to fill it up as much as possible. So I might have an investor that says, I want my ARV to be 400,000, no more than that. I like to be all in 70% of the ARV on my cost. These are my holding costs. And then I piece all that together when I'm talking to my investors. So like I said previously, I try to make sure that all of the deals that come across my desk or that I see, I have somebody that can purchase them. Because when you're the finder for people, that's where it's really beneficial. So I try to get as much information as I can. And no better way to build credibility with somebody that you're wanting to work with investor wise. If you go to one of those personal meetups and you go, that's crazy, I actually have a deal that would work perfectly. Let me show it to you. That's going to be the thing that helps get that investor to work with you. The other thing that I did when I first got into it was when I talked to one investor, I just said, who else do you think I should know in this business? Who else do you think is going to help? Who else is looking for deals? Who else can I help in this capacity? Because like I said, if I've got a buy to hold investor, his numbers aren't going to fit a property that might need to be flipped. So I would try and get that as well, figure out what I could do to help out, and everything like that.
Got it. Yeah. One of the things that we share with our agents a lot is when you're out there, let's say you get a listing or you're working with a buyer and you know that you're also wanting to break into the investor world, is when you're driving and you see a rehab going on, like that's like the easiest thing to be like, wow, there's an actual rehab. There's a high chance this is an investor, right? And not a homeowner. And a lot of times you can just literally walk up to the contractor and be like, hey, by the way, I'm a local realtor. I would love to find out, is this an investor that's doing this renovation, or is it a traditional buyer that you're doing this for, right? And you can strike a conversation and be like, oh man, I want to, start networking with the investor. I might even have a buyer. Who knows? You can pick whatever, bait you want to use to get the information for the investor. But at the same time, it's all public information. So as long as you know that it's an investor that owns it, you can look it up. It's public records, right? And then you find out who the company is. You can track them down and then literally reach out to them like, hey, by the way, I've seen this property I was driving by, you're working on. Congratulations. Like, that's amazing. What's the plan? Are you planning on listing it? I might, be interested in helping potentially doing some open houses for you, right? If you don't have an agent, like, I'm always out there looking to network with investors. Boom. Right.
Yeah.
I can tell you, if I'm an investor doing that flip and you call me like that, I will be very open to your conversation, because I'll be like, wow, like you are out there in the field, literally looking for these type of opportunities. And now you're actually adding value potentially to my business. Right. So driving around, don't underestimate that. I think that's a very easy way of literally finding gold out there. And another way we can find out easy too is reach out to your title rep. Whoever is your title rep that you're working with, they should be able to actually get you a list of all transactions that closed with cash recently. You can even look it up on the MLS because you're a realtor, right? You can also look it up on the MLS, who closed whatever in the last 30, 90, 60 days, whatever you want, and close with cash, right? And high probability, if you follow the public records then of that transaction, you might find that there was a company. Most likely, if it's a trust, it's usually like a homeowner, right? Or a family. But if it's an LLC, then you Google that company, right? And then all of a sudden you're now creating a list of all different LLCs, which could be investment companies you can then follow up with. First Google, do your research, study them a little bit, do a little bit of ninja research on them. So then when you do reach out, you have some points to point back to, like, hey, wow, I was on your website. I've seen you've done, so many cool projects, and I just drove by this one, blah, whatever. You need to find something that you can basically, when you're reaching out, you have a common thing to mention, right? Of something that is connected to them. Go ahead, Eric. I see you're like,
Yeah, so I had two things. One, I just thought about, if you're driving around and you see a bandit sign, they're all over Cincinnati. If you see a sign that says cash for houses, we'll buy houses for cash, call that number and there's an investor. Only investors are going to put that out. Call them. How can I help you find deals? That is, I've done it before and it's amazing because you have investors that are actively looking for deals. They're taking the time to post that. Hey, do you want me to grab some signs for you? Your number's on there. I'll go post them. Now make sure you're allowed to legally, because certain areas don't allow it. The other thing, kind of what you were saying with title companies, rock stars, no rock stars. I had a title guy that reached out to me when I first got in the business, and every loan officer I use, like half the people in my business I use are from that one title guy, because he always had connections. And when I was looking for something, hey, I need a loan officer that does this. Who do you have? He works with those people every single day. It's different people all the time. He also works with investors. My hard money lender that I use, that a lot of my investors use, he knows a ton of investors because that's what he does. So rock stars, no rock stars. Anytime you're you're looking for somebody, find somebody who's doing really well, see if you can help them out and if they'll kind of help you find it, because it's the best way to do it. I mean, if somebody's doing really well and they're successful in their business, there's always a reason, and they always know other people who are also doing well.
And a lot of investors I know around in San Diego, they will actually put up a sign at their rehab because to them, that's also branding themselves. So
Yep.
you might not have to do too much research. You might literally see a sign, another development by the company, right?
Yep.
And they'll might have even like we buy houses cash underneath it, right? Because it's all designed to get their name out there and get more leads for their flipping business. At the same time as they want to promote the property that is being renovated for resale, right? So that's very common here in San Diego, where it's so easy to find them, like when you're driving out there.
Yeah, and they're easier to find, and investors are easier to find. The thing that you want to do when you're looking at an investor, because I run in this too, is you want to find somebody who's investing and knows what they're doing. If you get too many people who are just thinking about investing or getting at the beginning, yes, you can kind of help them as an agent, but it's more time. And you might be able to help them really grow that business, but it's something that, as an agent, it's nice to have somebody's established. And part of that's just going to be how you go to them and approach those investors. Like, how are you going to start this conversation about how you can be helpful to their business? Because you can't just go to an investor and say, hey, I noticed you got 10 flips going on. I'd love to list all of them. They're going to laugh at you.
Yeah.
You have to be able to go in there, know what you're talking about, have something to give them, show them that you have that drive to help them and grow their business.
Yeah. One thing I will, as we try to transition to the approach, because that's going to be crucial, like a high level way, which is something I did in New Jersey, is I actually started my own real estate club. And I'm actually going to share the link to this in the chat. And so we used meetup.com to spread the word about it back in 2018. So we leveraged the Meetup network, right, to spread the word about our club. And then, of course, we promoted it to our sphere locally in Jersey. It became the largest networking group in New Jersey in a short, like 1 year of existence. My buddy, who is still running the group, he paused it for a while last year, and now he's restarting it. So if you're in New Jersey, check it out. I mean, it's gold, great group. But maybe in the future episodes, or whatever we want to call these, I'll break down what I would do if I was you, if you were ever thinking about starting your own real estate event, right? And I would recommend that we called it New Jersey Real Estate Social Network, and we basically made it open to realtors, investors, lenders, whoever, right? And I'm telling you, I got so much business from it. Like, I can't even describe how good it is. So a future episode, I'll actually break that down for you guys. So if that's something you want to start, you can do it literally. Trust me, like next week if you want, because nothing gets started with, having 100 people in a room. You started with a small little happy hour, work it up to that bigger event. But I'll share my journey on that if anyone would be interested.
There's always a common theme that I've found in business, like especially starting out, was just like, if you add value to people, and that's adding value, like you're not putting that, it doesn't sound like you put that meetup together to just brand yourself or something like that. You started it to add value, to kind of help your sphere, and you could all go there and bounce ideas off of each other. When you start like that and you're that centerpiece, you're that person that's bringing a bunch of people that are like-minded together, it's huge. I mean, a lot of people see that as like, he started this, he knows what's going on. So it puts you in that credibility piece as well.
Yeah. The reason we started it, Eric, is because we would go to other RIAs, and they were such old school RIAs. It was so freaking annoying, because we would go there, they would have classroom style tables and chairs. Then you would have the founders that have been the founders and in front of a room for a decade teach and then sell us stuff. Like, and there was no networking. I was like, this is the worst. Like, I get nothing out of this, because they're just trying to sell their own stuff and how great they are. So my buddy, John, we were like, screw this, man. We're going to start our own and we're going to do it completely different. We're going to have round tables. We're going to offer food. We're not going to sell anything at our events. And that's how we blew it up. But anyway, I'll share some of those tips on another session because it's a lot to unpack, but it's possible and it works. So it works so well. But anyway,
Yeah.
so now we're, we go to these meetings or, you're driving around, you find an investor. What are the buzzwords or what would you recommend realtors say? Like, how do they approach them? Let's just say it's they need a buy and hold investor, which you work with. Like, what would be your approach, Eric?
Yeah. So first you want to find out what they're doing. So you're going to want to be, I always say like a conversation, you want to be the person that's listening. So, what are you doing in investing? What are you purchasing? How many units are you looking to add? What do you need in your business? I try to gather as much information as I possibly can. I don't want to just go in there and start saying like, I know what after repair value means. I know when a house looks really bad. I want to find out what they want. Once I start to get that kind of in my mind, I start to go, well, how can I help you in your business? Are you looking to add more units this year? Are you okay? Some of those people that go to meetups and stuff, they're just there just to network and they're perfectly fine with where they're at. You don't want to pitch yourself to those kind of people. That's somebody that's like, I don't want to add any more units. I've got 100 units, dude. I'm retired. I'm here just because these are like-minded folks and I like having conversation with them. You want to find those people that are actively doing business. So I would always ask questions. I would have that discussion. And then what I would do is, for one, my expertise on investing, I would discuss, hey, look, I work with other people. I run the acquisitions. I run the dispositions. I help with marketing. I'll help you find off-market properties. I'll call your motivated seller leads. I'll intake some of your seller leads, whatever you kind of need help with. That's what I'm here for. Investors love that. The more you can take off their plate, like I've got a buddy who wholesales right now, and he's literally referred me off like 4 different listings in the past 2 weeks because he's like, 1, I'm too busy. 2, I don't feel like dealing with it. And 3, you're the only person that I want to throw these to. So, and we help each other as much as possible. And it's just, you don't want to word vomit a bunch of the investor lingo. I think if you do that, investors kind of like, if you're just like, oh, like you really want to find out what they want. And then if you can help them, offer it. If that person, what they say, none of it lines up with your expertise or with what you know, just say like, maybe I can find somebody to help you. I'm not that person right now, but I would love to be able to connect you to somebody else. Because again, when you're connecting people and providing value, that's where you're going to stand out. And maybe that investor is not right for you, but maybe he's got 10 other buddies that are fit right up your alley. And he goes, cool, I have these guys as well. Do you mind helping them? And something I always try to do, if you're an agent, you need to keep up with market knowledge. Now, I'm not saying you have to have every stat memorized, but you should know what's going on inventory wise, what's going on with rates, what's going on with, what are we seeing? There's common things that happen in every market. In Cincinnati right now, we're right back to taking off. We're multiple offers. If it's priced well, it's going like that. It's a good time for the people that have flipped to list their properties now. So you want to kind of position yourself as that market knowledge, that market expert.
Yeah. So I think that's great. And one thing that I strategically do anytime I meet a new investor, well, first of all, I don't underestimate a newbie investor, right?
Yeah.
What I actually look at is what they answer to my next question after I meet them. Once I understand how experienced they are, then I ask them, okay, so what is your acquisition strategy? And I just let them talk, right? And I shut up. What I'm looking for is someone that's actually spending money on direct mail.
Yep.
Or direct seller marketing, really, because some do mail, some just do texting, outbound texting, some do outbound calls. So it doesn't matter what kind, as long as it's direct to seller marketing. Why is that important? Well, I know right away, like, okay, this person freaking is serious. They have a marketing budget. They're spending money. And I already know that there could be an opportunity if they don't already have an in-house agent that they partner with on what I'm about to ask them, then that's my opportunity and my in on the conversation to then set up a secondary meeting, because I'm not going to go into all of that on my first meeting of with this investor. It's way too much. So once I know and they tell me, oh yeah, we do direct to sale marketing, or maybe if it's a newbie, they'll say, I want to do direct to sale. I'm building relationships with agents, but next month we're going to start allocating $1,000 towards direct to sale marketing. I'm like, awesome. What are you planning on doing? Right. Or what are you doing? Oh, we're doing postcards to, pre-foreclosure list. Awesome. Great. Or to, divorcees. It doesn't matter. Right. I want to find out though, what is it that they're doing? Who are they targeting? And then my follow-up question to that would be like, great. So right now, when you get those leads, right, and it doesn't fit your cash purchase program, Mr. Investor, what do you do with the rest? And again, I shut up, right, and let them tell me. And in most cases, believe me, they don't really, they have no answer. They're like, nothing. Like, we just tell the homeowner that we can't help them. Like, if they don't want our offer, like, we move on. It's a numbers game. Like, usually that's kind of the, and it's true for them. That's true. And it's also really good. They're staying very focused, right? However, that's an opportunity for me. Like, well, what if we maybe, consider partnering on something like that? And I've done this in the past. If you have, or if you haven't, then it doesn't matter. And just bring it up and say like, hey, this is something that I'm looking to venture into, is partner with investors. Because what I found over the years with my conversations with investors, that they spend a lot of money on marketing like you, and then you look for that diamond in the rough, right? 1 out of 10 might sell the property to you for the cash purchase program, but the other 9, they'll probably end up talking to a realtor and putting it on the market if they are really seriously trying to sell.
Yep.
So then this is the opportunity that I would love to discuss with you on how we can maybe partner. And now all I did there is I got their attention, right? And because one thing I would add to that though is say, and how you can also make money of every listing potentially that I end up doing if we decide to partner. So you got to make sure that they hear that there is money for them in that, right? And then I would schedule a follow-up meeting, right? And that's where I would then unpack like, hey, so here's how we can work together. If you have a lead that, is not fitting into your box, here, refer me, and here is how you should pitch me, right? Because that's very important. And I think we should actually do a deep dive at some point into that, Eric, like just the whole referral partnership with investors, right? There's so much to unpack there, but I really want to kind of get your mind spinning on how easy this could be. Literally, when you start meeting these investors and you have a specific questions you ask, to look for that answer that you want to hear. Because if I did the same thing and an investor said, oh, we just wholesale, like, we don't really, or we just work with agents of the MLS, that's great. I'm going to still connect with them, but I can tell you, and I'm going to put them in my, Rolodex, or, sort of say. But I also know as an agent, I have less opportunities there compared to if someone is spending money on direct mail. That's my approach.
And then we had a question, what's referral rate? It's going to differ for everybody. It's an agreed upon thing. I typically do 30%. Like my wholesaler that's giving me 4 listings. He actually got licensed last year. So I joked with him and I was like, you're going to get a referral for this, right? And he's like, what is it? And I was like, it's 30%. And he's like, oh, I love this. And then I was like, just kidding, it's 10%, but I'd already said 30, so I was messing with him. But it's usually 30%, but you can negotiate. I mean, it just depends on what the referral rate's going to be. So
I would make it, anywhere between 25 to 30. You don't need to go higher. Like I literally got, I think I mentioned this last time, I got a referral from an investor for a land listing because they don't buy land. And we listed it, my partner Jessica and I, and we got so much interest and offers. We ended up opening escrow with our own buyer. So we're going to double end it. And it was referred to us. We're going to give them a 25% on the listing side only. And then the buyer side, we're making the 2.5% additional because we found our own buyer. Right. And that was from an investor. That's closing, I think, next week. Right. And
that's the thing too. You want to set it up in that investor's mind that you're paying for this marketing. don't let leads go to waste. Like if there's somebody calling you, and hey, I don't want a cash offer, but I do want to sell. Awesome. I've got an agent who can help you. I'd love to. And then two, when you help people like that, again, even as an investor, when you help people, maybe that person doesn't want to sell cash, but they go, I've had people do this that I talk to. Hey, I'm not looking to sell for cash. You can call my neighbor across the street. Their house is a complete dump. And I know that they're about to get foreclosed on or something like that. Like I've had neighbors who are just nosy neighbors and they've led me to other leads just because I sat there and took the time to have conversation with them.
Couple of years ago, I want to say, a couple of years ago, I actually partnered with an investor that was spending a lot of money on marketing direct to sellers, and to the point where he was like, he understood what I mentioned. I literally went through the script with him that I just gave you, to the point where he was like, you know what, we have so many, we don't want to just give it all to one agent. What if we bring on a couple agents that we've been doing business with already that are bringing us deals? Right? Because that's where investors will go first. The agents are bringing them deals. That's who they're going to reciprocate to. Right? But guess what? I didn't bring them one deal yet, but because I brought up this idea, they built out a whole department around this idea. And I was one of the agents, and we literally had a spreadsheet with them so they could see our communication. They would do an amazing warm referral to me. I would go to listing appointments. Sometimes I would even go to the appointment with them. That was the initial appointment that was geared for them to buy the house cash. And then they would say, look, this is my realtor that if we end up buying this property, they always list this home anyway. So we want them to see this property. And sometimes our offer doesn't make sense. So then if we determine that that's a better route, the traditional route, then you can talk to our realtor. He's right here.
Yeah. That's almost like,
it was gold. I was right there. It was like,
yeah,
and I would win either way.
That's almost how we do every single one of our appointments for the main flipping guy that I work for, is we both go and we go, here's a cash offer. If you don't like that, because then, depending on what they want to do, some people just want to sell cash, but if like they balked at it, then he'd say, okay, also here's my realtor, and he'll let you know what you can do to make it so that it can list. So,
Yeah.
All right, so as an investor, how to stand out. So, I mean, you're going to want to attract the agents as an investor. And do you want to start, Randy, or do you want me to?
Well, we always want to kind of touch upon the other group, right? That we're also speaking about finding, right?
Yeah.
In your case, you're the realtor looking for an investor. But if you are an investor only and you want to attract the right realtors, I think you got them. I think you already got your mind spinning. Just what is it going to take? Which, if I was an investor, I would really look into doing seller direct marketing, because you can literally get referral fees to pay back for the marketing that you're doing to generate the cash opportunities, which is really what you're after. So you can literally, be a very, very attractive investor type for a realtor to partner with, exactly how I just described, right? I think that's the biggest one where you can really stand out and start thinking outside the box, to the point where maybe you, the investor, reaches out to your realtor right now after this thing and says, hey, look, man, here's what I just learned, and I'm wasting my money, right? I'm doing all this marketing. I want to partner with a good realtor, and you've brought me deals. That's how you stand out, right? So that would be my thing. I would just kind of go with that same theme, right? Because I just know that I made a lot of money from partnering with investors like that. What would you say?
Yeah, so I was going to say marketing is going to be huge. Anytime as a realtor, I can have marketing that I'm not necessarily completely involved with, or even co-spend it. It always helps. As an agent, we love buying opportunity. We love being able to represent on the buyer side, on the investor. And what that might look like is there's a house on the market, needs some work, numbers make sense. If you have an agent that you like to use and you yourself aren't licensed, I know we're kind of a mixed bag in here. But if you're not licensed, reach out to an agent that refers business to you. Reach out to somebody and say, hey, do you mind, walking this property with me, getting the offer together? Because for an agent, that's extra, that's commission. And it doesn't necessarily have to come on the listing side. And then, as an agent, I love to have listings. If I bring you a deal, or if we're working together, I would like to have the listings. That's a lot of work I'm putting in. So you can preface it as an investor and say, every deal you bring me, you're going to be listing. Or on our co-marketing opportunities, if the opportunity arises, you're going to get the listing. Maybe we'll split it somehow. Be careful with state laws. Like you know, in Ohio, referral has to be to another agent. We have a question as investors. Do you discount the commission for your agents on the buy side and sell side? It just depends on the commission discount. I know we talked about this a little bit on the first one. Talk with the investor and make sure it works for both of you. Don't discount your point to where it doesn't make sense that you're putting the work in. But if it's recurring business and it's volume business, do it. I have an agent that I work with that I'm really good friends with, and he takes a 1.5% listing on every listing, which in our market is unheard of. We're 3%, worst case 2.5%. He takes 1.5%, but he gets like 14 listings a week. So it's worth it.
Yeah, Devon, yeah, it's going to be case by case. We covered this last week a bit, because like in San Diego, I'll do discount for investors only all day long, right? Because it's a multi-sale a year type approach. But in Cincinnati, Eric doesn't want to do that, right? Unless there is a really good reason. So it really will be case by case. And what you need to remember, as long as the investor gets what they're looking for their profit margin, they shouldn't really care how much you make. So I'll break one of the future sessions, and we have so much content, so we'll dive deeper into how I do it. Just so my wife is mixing ice. I don't know if you hear that, but I'll dive deeper into how I do it. So maybe you can pick up some of the things for yourself, because there's ways of doing a discount, but then still keeping a minimum and then still get bonuses once you hit a certain price. So there's a lot to unpack with that question, but the short answer is it depends. One thing that I forgot to mention, Eric, real quick, about approaching investors as we want to wrap this up and get into breakout rooms is offer like the newbies. The big one for new investors is helping them with analysis, right?
Yeah.
However, it's a slippery slope there, because you also don't want to be like, oh yeah, just send me all your properties you're looking at. I'm going to analyze the ARV for you. It's like, you're going to drown. It's going to suck. I'm like, no. I teach my investors, and I'll tell them, look, I need you to give me, of course, the property address. I need to tell me, how did you find the value? What is your ARV? What did you decide is the ARV? How did you come up with it? If you don't have access to the MLS, that's fine. Give me the links to Redfin comps. Give me something that you use to determine the value that you now want me to give you a second opinion on. And I always say, I'm your second opinion, right? I'm not the one buying the property. It's not my money, right? It's your money. So ultimately it's your decision. However, I want to be the secondary eyes for you. And sometimes I'll be the one to tell you, like, don't do this deal. And it's probably going to be the best deal you'll do that year, because you won't lose money. Right? So I want to offer my services to them, but I also don't want to drown myself, right? So you have to set the tone, set the expectations of how that relationship will work, because my goal is to teach my investor on how to become a better in analyzing ARVs to the point where they don't necessarily need to come to me anymore, unless they already have the property under contract and they're telling me, Randy, I need you to list it. Can you go look at the property? I'm going to buy it next week. I just need your blessing. And then you're going to list it because we've done business together. Like, that's where it can lead to with the serious investors. So you have to be careful, right, of who you work with. So,
all right, I'm going to add one last thing before the breakout session. If you're an agent and you also want to pick up investors, Zillow, go on there, look for people who have properties to rent. If they have a property for rent, they're a buy and hold investor typically, or they just bought a house one-off. Those are great people to call too. We've done that. I wrote down all of their numbers. I had conversations. Are you looking to find more properties? Can I help you with that? I've noticed this property hasn't been renting. Can I take professional photography for you? How can I help out? Oh, okay. You want to list it because it's not renting what you wanted it to. So I've done that as well. I know people don't love Zillow. You can use anything, but look for people who are actively renting properties as well. Maybe they want to sell it. Maybe they're looking to buy more. Maybe you can help add value. and kind of fit yourself in that cog too.
And then the last thing too, we forgot is open houses. Like us investors, and I say us because we still have our investment company. And my realtors on my team in San Diego, they actually do open houses for the investment company. And they fill up so quick. And the investors literally on their calendar, they have so many open slots for open houses because they want their houses opened all the time. Why wouldn't you? I think I mentioned that last week. So don't assume just because you're approaching a big investor that maybe does a ton of business that they already have agents that cover all their open houses. There's a high chance they don't. And they always will want good agents to hold their open houses, right? So to finish it, if you start creating this type of relationship that we're describing, the biggest thing to retention will be communication, over communication, and over organization. Those will be your best things after you retain that relationship. I despise when I would have an agent hold my open house and then I have to beg them for feedback. It's like, what? That doesn't make any sense. Like I gave you my asset to go and do an open house for your most of your benefit as well, right? Because most agents do open houses so they could get business. And then you don't provide me feedback in a timely manner. So I have to actually ask you, like, you're off my list. You're not doing open houses for me again. So retention, I'm telling you, over communicate, be very organized, and investors want feedback on their asset.
We had a question. Is it every state, are you able to hold an open house for an investor? Be careful if it's not your listing that you are getting permission from either the seller or the agent. So it's going to vary. In Cincinnati, I run a lot for investors that maybe aren't even listed with me to pick up business, but I confirm with the listing agent and or seller who would be the investor. Is it okay that I'm going to go out there to this property, hold an open house? They typically now reach out to me to hold the open houses. But just be careful, talk to your broker if you're an agent, and see what their recommendations are.
Cool.
Ready for the
so Eric, I'm going to do breakout rooms. We're going to do this into, hopefully you got some good stuff out of this. And now what we want to do is have you discuss this with your small group of 5 or so people and share what maybe it is that you're already doing, right, to attract the right investor. And if you are an investor, what are you doing to attract the right realtor? And if you're new at either one of these, maybe share what you're planning on doing from some of the things that you're learning. And then we'll come back and do a couple group shares for everybody. So I'm going to do this right now. You're going to be basically see a pop-up in front of you. You got to accept it. So you're going to go into your individual rooms with 4 or 5 of you. All right. And then we'll come back. Everybody has 1 minute to share. And we're going to be on the outside, just keeping time. See you guys soon. Okay, so they should be coming back from the breakout rooms. All right, let's see who's still with us.
Hey, sorry about that, Randy. My laptop froze up on me.
Oh, it's all good. It's all good, buddy. No problem. All right, so we should have everybody back. So is there any, since we only have 2 rooms, oh, my timer just went off. Any shares? Anybody want to share anything that was something maybe that we didn't discuss here that you guys learned in the room?
We were just talking about, like, as an agent, what questions do I need to ask an investor to kind of see where they're coming from? So knowing when they can tell me what the ARV is, kind of knowing that they're on their game and they know what they're talking about a bit.
Yeah.
Got it. So like taking the temperature on their experience level, so you know what you're up against.
Right.
Got it. Cool. Thank you. Anybody else want to share? Maybe from the other room? I don't know which room Rikesia was in.
Well, we just kind of went over where we were at in the process, kind of getting to an idea of, some are new, some are agents, some are looking, yeah. So it was interesting to see, although Tommy Smith and Tommy is obviously got a lot of experience going with this, and I've been a real estate agent for 16 years and have a client that I've been working with for the last 5 years, and I want to expand on that. And we were just talking about some of where our needs were and how we were looking at that. So
Yeah.
Awesome. Good stuff. And as we're getting feedback from you guys and just shares, if you can post in the chat as far as what you're planning on doing over the next 10 days, because we're going to actually take those and we're going to follow up and see how you're doing. Not that we want to babysit you, but we want to be more like, hey, how are things going? Can we help you in any way? So it will create a little bit of accountability, but we really want to see you take progress, right? Make some moves, make this work, because Eric and I, we know it works. It's been working for us for years. So if you can put in the comments in the chat, what is it that you're planning on doing over the next 10 days, and be as specific as you can. Like, if it means like, hey, I'm going to go and meet one investor at a RIA, or I'm going to attend a RIA next week, or whatever. Put that in the chat now. Anybody else want to share anything that would be helpful for the group, or maybe a question?
I'm gonna take a picture of these just so we have them, which I know
Yeah.
it'll be. Yeah, it could be like a
Nicole,
7 day.
I'm gonna put Nicole on the spot because I know
Okay.
Nicole, so I could do
That
that.
was my, I want to say something, but I don't know if I should say anything. Face
Oh.
that you picked up on. I think it would be really helpful. I liked being in the breakout groups. We just didn't have much time to really like say what's our problem and have the other people fix it. I think that would be cool for next time, is to kind of say what we're struggling with, and then maybe someone in our group might have a good answer.
Yeah.
Got
I
it. So how much time you think? Because I tried to do it where you have a minute each, but what do you think? A little longer?
Maybe a little longer. And I guess it depends on the people in the room, but it's hard. I think being the first time and then explaining like who you are, where you live, what you're
Yeah.
currently working on, I feel like that was our minute,
For
Got
sure.
it. How about the amount of people? Because then we can increase the time, but then maybe have less people, maybe like
Yeah.
4 people, or which.
yeah, that's good.
Okay.
I'm with her though on that, the time.
Yeah. Okay, perfect.
I
Like,
second
yeah, this is we're experimenting with all different things to make this community as good as we can. So this is great feedback. Thanks, Nicole. Done. We'll do it. All right. Well, it's 1:59. We're gonna finish on time. And Eric, you got all the comments?
Yep, got pictures of them. Just try and get them done 7 days. By next
Awesome.
meeting, hopefully we can check in, and also, use the Facebook group too. Like, we're trying to, I'll post in there a little bit more, but that's also a great way for us to kind of interact. And if you have questions, even in between now and the next meeting, feel free to ask it. That's what it's there for. So, if you're thinking like, I want to do a meeting, where should I go? Where should I look? Feel free to ask that, and everybody can kind of give their input there too.
Yeah, right on. Awesome. Good stuff. Thank you, guys. Hope you like the new format. We're going to keep playing with it, and invite whoever you think this will benefit. Let's grow the community, help one another. Have a great rest of the week, and I'll be in Tampa I'm going to meet Eric for the first time in person on Saturday. So
I'm
this is gonna be
excited.
fun. All right, guys. Later.
See you guys.
Oh, I thought my video was on and it was up the whole time. See you guys later.
Bye,
See you
thanks.
guys.
Oh, that's so funny.